everybody's asking, how was our vacation? How was our vacation? And we posted all these great pictures because Ash is really good at posting great pictures. I want you to know that it was a fabulous opportunity for spiritual practice. All right, so as many of you who were here last time know, just before that, the reason for the trip to begin with was a cousin of mine who's like a sibling, we're really that tight, asked that we come to London for her husband's 70th birthday party. So my brother, sister, and I, we all set up these trips, and Ash and I, because we thought, well, we're going all the way to London for this party, let's get over to Paris. I've never been there. I want to go to the Louvre. And so we set this whole thing up, and then 2 days before we left, about 2 days before we left, 3 maybe, I found out that my cousin had a massive stroke, which changed everything. And so all of a sudden, instead of going to Paris, it was all about getting to Switzerland, which is where she lives, to go visit her and see her. So you have that context and so the other thing is Ash had booked herself a week before me by accident. And so she was there a whole week hanging out with her friend. She had some friends over in England she got to hang with before I arrived. So I was up here on Sunday, and then Monday I left. I left on the trip, and Ash had done me the honor and pleasure of getting me a pod for the 8-hour trip so that I could sleep going across, okay? And so I leave on Monday, and so I'm really looking forward to this because she went in a pod too, and she's telling me how, man, you're gonna love this. It's so comfortable, it's so wonderful, and I'm like, all right, gonna sleep in a pod. This is so cool, right? So I get, and I have this buddy, tennis buddy, who has a cab, and so I hired him to take me to the airport. So he comes, and we're on our way to the airport. I am not 3 minutes in the cab before I get a text that says, your first flight from Edmonton to Calgary is so delayed that you're going to miss your flight to London. And I'm like, okay, spiritual practice time, right? Right? When else are you going to use it? I mean, you should be using it all the time, but especially then. So I'm like, okay. And so I sit and do a spiritual mind treatment. You really want to take that class. And so, and I call up the airline. I go, so I noticed that my first flight's not making my second flight. What are we going to do about that? As we're driving to the airport. And the person on the plane goes, you're not on that flight. You're on a flight to Vancouver. And the Vancouver one is on time, and you'll make your flight on British Airways to London easily. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I still have a pod, right? And they go, no, you're in economy. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be in a pod. And the lady says, well, let me get a supervisor. And the supervisor gets on the phone and basically says, too bad, so sad, you're in economy, that's the best you get, you're done. There's nothing else I can do for you, and hangs up. I'm sitting there doing spiritual practice. And I'm doing so well at it that this is the best part of this trip so far. I'm doing so well at it that Glenn sitting beside me is going, I can't believe you're so calm about this. And I'm thinking to myself, me neither. I must be getting really good at this. And because I was thinking back to a time about 30 years ago when I was selling insurance, and the insurance company that I was dealing with had just done one of my clients a very large disservice. And I was on the phone with them screaming so loud that my buddy who was with me at the time was afraid I was going to have a stroke. I was turning so red. So that's how I used to be. And now I got this guy sitting next to me going, I can't believe how calm you are. And so being calm is not passive. I get to the airport and I walk in and I go to the counter. And the thing about it is I actually had my boarding tickets on my phone. So I walk up to the counter and I go, here's my boarding pass. And she goes, oh, we've been dealing with this for the past couple of hours. Let me see what I can do. And so it turns out there was this earlier flight that wasn't late, that they still had time to get me on, that would have gotten me on my original flight. And so she was able to set all that up, except they'd already given away my pod to somebody else. I said, but here's my ticket. Here's my ticket. And I could hear Ash's voice in my head going, how enlightened are you now? And so I stayed calm. I really did well. I did okay. And so she looked at me and saw that, I wasn't getting, we were having a good relationship here. And she said, let me see what I can do. And so what she was able to do was set me up for a premium. It's not the pod, but it's not. Get extra leg room. It's still going to be pretty comfortable. And it's like, I'm sorry, this is the best I can do, and sends me on my way. I get to the gate, and this guy shows up out of nowhere and goes, and he was clearly in management because everybody got out of his way. And he goes, I heard what happened to you, and I'm going to fix this. And he does a couple of things, and he goes, you are now in a pod. You're going to Vancouver. You're going to be in a pod in British Airways going to London. And that was that. My bag had already been checked into the first flight. He said he's going to take care of that too. I kind of had my doubts. But I have this great flight going all the way to Europe, great flight. They really take care of you when you got a pod, and I slept, and it's bed, and it's great. If you've never had that experience once in a lifetime, you really ought to have that experience especially on a flight that's 8 hours, And so anyway, I arrive in London, and the first thing I notice is I got a little tickle in my throat. More on that later. Sure enough, my bag did not arrive. But the lady at the counter said my bag was in this other terminal because it came in on the first, I was now on British Airways, and it came in on the original flight. So it was one terminal away, which was she said, about a 15-minute train ride. The biggest problem is that the terminal was closed. And she said, we'll take care of it. We'll get the bag to your room. So Ash is there to greet me, which was great. We take a cab, we get to the hotel, and we begin a week. And the next day, we don't have my bag, which also has her stuff in it, by the way. We decided, why don't we consolidate, have all our big stuff in the one bag for the party and all the trips we're doing, and that bag is not there. But, I having traveled once or twice before, I had a couple of clothes in my carry-on, so we weren't too bad for the first day. We thought we'd be okay till our bags got there. Spiritual practice. The thing about this, and the reason I'm going through all this with you is, we have defaults, right? We have ways in which we initially react to something that we've been doing since probably we were kids. And changing that takes practice. It isn't something that you just all of a sudden wake up one day and react differently. Maybe you're a lucky one. If you're one of those people who have done that, God bless you. But for most of us, it takes a lot of work. This is why these classes are so important. This is why I'm so happy to continue this practice and have you guys to be accountable to. You know, one of the things, this is so funny for me, but one of the things that goes on for me when I'm out in the world is I remember you guys. I remember that you've hired me to stand in spiritual practice and then share what I go through around that with you, right? That's my job. And I remember that as I'm out in the world going through whatever it is that's going on. And it's really fun because it makes me accountable and it rises me up. And this is why being in class, because then you're surrounded by other people who are doing that for you, who are holding you accountable to actually practicing what it is it's teaching. I'm sure I've told you this before, but I used to get phone calls. I don't get as many anymore, but I used to get a lot of phone calls, especially when I was in Burbank, from people who would complain about studying the science of mind for 25 years and how their life hasn't changed. And I'd ask them, well, did you practice? Because that's what it takes, and it takes having people around you to help you hold you accountable towards doing that. And you guys hold me accountable. So we're in London now. The next day, Ash wanted to go to the Cliffs of Dover, right? So it's a 2-hour train ride, and it's early. I don't really like getting up early, but my wife wanted to go, so I'm up early. And we get on the train, and I go use the bathroom, and there's no soap in it. Right? And now, for some of you, that may not be a big deal, but I'm a bit of a germaphobe. And so I come out of the bathroom, and now I'm not touching nothing for 2 hours, right? I'm sitting in meditation for 2 hours. Instead of now, in the past, I would have been freaking out. I would have been upset, angry, have all that kind of stuff going on. Instead, I just sat there in meditation, going, this is my meditation for 2 hours until we arrived at the station and I could go clean myself up. And I was able to do that. And I thought, that is so cool. I didn't have to go through all the upset, all the yelling and screaming that, has kind of been in my past. And I was able to just sit there and then handle that. Now, it sounds like a stupid little thing, but I bet you go through stupid little things in your life. Or am I the only one? Right? So these are the things we go through. And then the rest of the day was fantastic. We went for this hike along the cliffs of Dover, and then we went into the town. And what was the name of that bar?
The last pub in the civilized world.
We found a pub on the street called the last pub in the civilized world. Big sign. It was great. And then one of the reasons we went to the White Cliffs is Ash had a past life experience around that, and we believe we found the spot that she remembered. So that was really cool. That's what you guys saw pictures of, right? Not me sitting there in meditation for 2 hours. And so that's Wednesday. And my brother and sister arrive. We have some fun with them. By Friday, our bag still hadn't arrived. The bag that was supposed to be in the terminal right over here. In the past, and my brother says to me, I would have raised the roof around that. That's what he said, that he would have done. And I thought, you know what? I would have too. But then I'm not doing my job. And so instead, we were just sitting there and we found this store that had stuff on sale for like 60% off or 70% off or something. So we were able to get some clothes to hold us out. But one of the things that happened was we originally planned to go visit my cousin in Switzerland from Friday to Sunday so that we can continue the trip that we had planned for Paris on Monday. Julian, Marcy's husband, said no. He didn't want us to show up till Sunday night because he had other guests there. It was, totally understandable. He had other people there and didn't want to be run with people. So we couldn't get there till Sunday night. So we rearranged everything. That was quite a feat in and of itself so that we could be there Sunday night. And we decided now that takes care of getting to Paris then, so why don't we go to Paris first? And so we were going to leave for Paris on Saturday, right? Yeah. So, because I wanted to go to the Louvre. Right? And she was all up for having me do that. So, Saturday, our bag still hadn't arrived. And now I'm telling the company, if you don't get it here before we get on that train to Paris, just send it home. The train gets delayed an hour. The bag shows up a half hour before we leave. Spiritual practice, man. It works in ways you can't even imagine, you don't even see coming. So then all of a sudden, just as we're getting ready to board, the bag shows up. Now we got the bag. We go to Switzerland. Beautiful trip, by the way, which you don't get to see very much of because the train's traveling at 300 miles an hour. So scenery's going by extremely fast. We get there, and Julian picks us up, and the next day, on Monday, I get to see my cousin. And she's in pretty bad shape. It's a massive stroke. She's doing a little better in terms of walking. So, she's able to walk a little bit with sticks, and they're doing great with her physical therapy. Her cognitive is not great. She has trouble putting sentences together. She recognized us when we walked in, but then not so much a little later, and then recognized us again. And so we're sitting there with her. I'm doing everything I can to raise her spirits, keep her laughing, saying, all the crazy stuff that happened during the trip so far. She's laughing a little bit. And the doctor comes in. And the doctor is explaining to Julian that even though her blood pressure is high, it's really important to get her to this re-education place where they can work on her cognitive. That her physical is coming along, but her cognitive isn't. They can't work on her cognitive here in the hospital. They need her in this other place. It's really important. Julian and Marcy's daughter are terrified about how high her blood pressure is, and if she had a stroke, a repeat at another place, which is a real possibility. So they're not fully able to latch into how important the doctors are saying it is that she gets to this cognitive place. I'm the guy who helped that transition. I was there for that. I was there at the perfect and right moment as they're saying they got a bed. She needs to move tomorrow. And while Julian's starting to freak out about this, I'm able to be there, keep him calm, and tell him this is the right thing. Because the bed that opened up was in the best place in Switzerland. Right? We go back to the house, and Julian asked me to get on a Zoom call with Kate, her daughter, to explain it to her because Kate's freaking out about her being moved. And so I explain it to Kate. And they get it. And they relax. At least enough. And the next day, Marcy is moved to this other facility where she is now, where she's beginning to show some signs of progress. But because of the move and our need to get to the next stop, which was Austin, Texas, that was the only chance I got to see her in the whole trip. And so in the morning, I was tearing up about that when your new associate spiritual leader points out to me what the importance of the perfect and right time of me being there and how we were able to support them in this important transition so that she could continue her healing. That was the important thing, not how much I got to see her. And of course she was right. Ash was right. And so that's what was possible. Again, shifting, constantly coming back to highest and best in spiritual practice. And so we left feeling pretty good about that and went to Austin. By the time we got to Austin, that tickle in my throat had become quite a cough. I thought, we both thought, it was allergies and jet lag. I mean, I was not adjusting well to all this flying around and traveling around. And so now we're in Austin, and this is my niece's wedding. That's why we're there. It's also the family reunion thing. And so I'm spending most of my nights awake, coughing my brains out with a splitting headache that won't stop. And then during the day, when I'm with my family, staying so clear and focused on my inner self that I'm not coughing once all day. But then the night would happen again, and I'd have this horrible night, right? And then the last 2 nights, I started breaking out into night sweats. And this is when I knew it was not allergies. And then Ash started coughing. And so we both hung in there, finished the trip, came home. And we did it with grace and peace. It isn't like we didn't lose it sometimes, you know? But this practice of ours is so powerful when you need it most, because stuff happens in life that doesn't go the way you want it to. Here's one of the cool facts about what happened on that trip. Not a single person we came in contact with caught what we had. Not one. I keep checking on them. Not one. That's clarity. You know, that's staying real clear and focused. That's what's possible when you get to a place in this teaching of understanding what's possible. You know, one of the biggest things that happens in this teaching is we forget what's possible when we're that clear. Oh, you know what? I skipped the part about Paris. I got to tell you what happened in Paris. I got to tell you what happened in Paris. So we have this 1 4-hour period. We get in late Saturday night. And the big deal on Sunday before we head out to Switzerland is going to the Louvre. And I had bought the tickets. So we go to the Louvre, and we get through and you enter through a pyramid to get into the main lobby, and we show our tickets, we get in, and we're in the main lobby. And then to get into actually where the paintings are, you go through a second place where they check your tickets again. She checks my tickets, and it says, and she goes, "These are for tomorrow." And so I go up, and I'm still, okay, spiritual practice time. I go up to the ticket. They sent me to the ticket counter. The ticket lady is rude. She's just like, too bad. You know, either come back tomorrow or that's it. And we can't come back tomorrow. We got to train in a couple hours. And I walked out of there, and the first thing that hit my head was, what a loser I am. Default. And here the thing about it is I thought I'd healed that completely when I was in that cabin in the woods. So the interesting part is as soon as I heard myself say that, the next thing that happened was, oh wow, I'm still thinking that. That isn't completely healed. I need to work on that. And went right into spiritual practice. It was that quick. I was like, what a loser. Oh, wow. Look at that thought I had. Now, in the meantime, my wife is dying of laughter. I mean, she is just doubled over with laughing so hard that after all this, we did not get into the Louvre. So as I am in my spiritual practice, coming back to myself, she's dying. And comes up with this idea about where the Impressionist painters used to hang out, on top of this hill. I don't remember what it's called. What? Montmartre. So we go there. And we have this extraordinary time. The paintings are gorgeous. It's really fun, all those painters that are up there selling their work, and some of it was just so extraordinary. And Ash and I have, when we travel, I always like to bring home something that we can hang on our walls, and we found something. We found something, and we brought it home. And it's beautiful. It's not on the wall yet, but it'll get there. Healing, focus, right? And then, I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little long, because I got to tell you this other thing that happened in Austin. It was amazing, right? I'm in Austin, and we're at my other brother's house, the one that has lots and lots of money. And it's his daughter that was getting married. We're touring his house, and he shows, which is incredible, and he has this office in it, and in his office, there's one painting hanging on the wall across from where he's sitting. So I go in and I look at the painting. I want to see what he's looking at all day, and I break out crying. Because that painting is a reproduction of a lithograph that hung on my grandmother's wall that is one of my earliest memories of life. And Norma had given me, the woman, his mother, had given me that had given me the lithograph after my grandmother died. And through all the moves I made, somewhere it got lost. And when I was looking at the painting, I realized I never grieved it. I never grieved how much that lithograph meant to me until I saw that painting on the wall. And I was telling David about this. And he had no idea. He just knew his mother painted it, right? He had no idea the history of where it came from and the story behind it. And it was this huge healing for me to feel the grief of the loss and to allow that for myself. So in the midst of all this craziness, there were these moments that were just extraordinary. And they're not even the ones that made it into the pictures. But this is what's possible when you keep an open heart in the midst of whatever chaos life has to offer you. It isn't about the events. It's about how you're being with it. It's about this practice that allows for, in the midst of it all, these things to pop up that are just awestruck. I mean, I had no way of knowing I was going to run into that painting. And that it would mean so much to me to see it. But it did, and it was extraordinary. And that's what's possible. So don't go into this teaching thinking all of a sudden everything's going to be with grace and ease. It's all going to work out just fine. That isn't what this is about. This is about rising yourself so that when these events happen that are hard, because life is hard, there's that gem that's in it that's for you. We found the gems on this trip. We found the gems. They're in every one of our lives. All of us have gems. And I hold that for you. That you get to see those gems in the midst of whatever experience you're going through. Thank you. I love you so much.